Well, I'll go ahead and start recording this, and if anybody else shows up, I'll let them in when they get here, I guess. So today, I just want to start off with a quick little review from last time. I had several people who took the quiz on the savings accounts. Several people did well, and several people had issues. So I'm gonna review a couple of things first and see where we go from there. So let's just say someone had put, I don't know, $500 in an account. And unless I say otherwise, it's going to be compounded monthly. So it's going to put 2% interest. And they're going to put in $15 a month for 2 years. Okay, well, there's 4 of the 5 players there, right? So there's time, that's NPER, that's 24 months. There's payment, that's $15 a month. There's 2% is my rate. So I need that. And of course, 500 is a present value. What's missing is the future value. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to Excel here and do this problem in Excel and answer the question to it. Pay no attention to that. That was what I was doing before you showed up. So here we go. The guy put 500 in the account. And he was getting 2.5%, so 0.025. I noticed that several people had issues, and I'm going to talk about this. The reason I'm talking about this is for several of them, several people had issues on the test, or the quiz rather, and I want to show you what you were doing wrong most likely. Although again, oops, darn it. That's what happens when you try to name it the same thing as something you've already named. It takes you to where the first one was. So let's see if I can not screw it up this time. I'm on sheet, I don't have my glasses on. I think that says sheet 4. Cool. And then payment, we're putting in $15 a month, I believe. And so PAMENT. Now I could call it deposit. There's no reason why I did one versus the other, really. So equals A1. Remember, that's the previous balance times 1 plus interest divided by 12. Now the computer doesn't know what I'm typing, so it doesn't know if I spelled it right or wrong, doesn't care. And so there I have it. Now, when I drag this down to 24 months, several of you are making this mistake. You're like, 24 months, that stops right here. No, it's only 23 months because the first row doesn't count. So notice that if you're off by that, you're off by about $18 or something, $17. So when I see something like this on a quiz where I don't have your work in front of me, I have a pretty good idea that it's because you're off by 1 cell. Now, some people do this part, they get this wrong. They put in 0.25 on accident. Okay, notice the difference. $1,281. Well, that's a lot different. Okay, well, that's because you're getting 25% per month, which is well over 300% a year. So that's a lot. So of course it's going to be, obviously wrong. So make sure and I do it wrong, 0.025. So make sure you get that decimal right. And then another thing that people will forget to do sometimes, they'll forget to divide by 12. And so if you do that, again, you're off by a lot. So when I give you a feedback on the quizzes, if you're off by a lot, my guess is either you forgot to divide by 12 or you got a decimal in the wrong place. Either one can really screw things up. So just be aware of that. Another thing that I want to talk about today is that, I don't think I'll just type this one on a new sheet here. Suppose that a person, you're going to put, $150 in an account and add, for 4 years at 5% interest. I'll finish showing this to you in a second. 5% interest. How much will you have to add to get to $700. Okay, so I'll make this bigger so you can see it better. There you go. Maybe I can see that. Okay, so how much will you have to add to get to $700? In other words, present value is 150. Is what we're starting with. 700 is our final value or future value. 4 years obviously is the amount of time, and so you got to be aware of that. And then and interest, of course, 5%. What we're missing is payment. We don't know how much to put in. And so because it's payment that we're missing, we're going to have to set this up a little differently. So here's interest, whatever. And then here's our initial value, 150, our present value. And then, of course, I need the payment. So I'm going to go equals PMT. And so it asks for the rate. Well, the rate is that divided by 12, comma. 4 years is 48 months, comma. Our present value is in A1. And we want to end up with $700. And you have to say negative 700 to make this work out correctly. So you're going to put in $9.75 a month, basically 2 Dutch brothers. Okay? Or thereabouts, or Dutch brothers and a half. I don't know. I don't really buy that stuff. But there you go. Now, one can see that I screwed that up because I didn't name this payment or deposit. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that right now. And so get rid of that and then do that. There we go. And so when I get down here to line 49, I should have exactly $700. Oops. And I did. So that's how I know I'm right. Okay. To me, that's the way to do those problems. It's very straightforward. Hard to mess them up. Not impossible, but hard to mess them up doing it that way. Okay. Sometimes, I might want to say something like this. Gonna turn that problem on its ear and say something like, you want or you need $5,000 in 2 years, and you can put $50 a month in at 2.1%. Okay, so what's missing here, obviously, then is what? Well, what's missing is you don't know what the initial or the present value is. So I'm going to go ahead and start up everything else the same way, 0.021. I'm going to label that interest, whatever. I'm going to put my payment here. I can't remember what I said. 50 bucks. Yes, 50 bucks. We're going to go right here. Make sure I name that payment or deposit or whatever makes you happier. And then here is where I'm going to do my present value calculation. So present value of, and then I want the interest divided by 12, comma, the number of years, or number of months rather, which is 24, the payment, which is this guy, and then the future value, and again, you have to put in as negative. I think I wanted negative $5,000. If I did this right, it should work. Now, assuming that that's correct, my formula will tell me if I'm right or wrong. Because again, when I drag this down in a minute, I really should end up at $5,000 when all is said and done. And so let's see if that's true. No, I forgot where I was going. Did I say 5 years? Oh, 2 years. 2 years. 2 years right there. And it's perfect. You see that? It's perfect. It's not close. It's perfect. So that's really sweet. That's what we want to have happen. So that's the sort of things that you should be looking at. I hope that helps you when you go back and look over what you've done, because that I hate for you to miss a problem on the thing because of that. Again, that's the savings test is still open for some time yet. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about today, and the big thing that's on the docket for today, was the idea of credit cards. And so for those of you who don't have them, I'm going to kind of do a little background on them. And for others of you, we have them maybe, but you don't really understand how the math works. That's obviously part of our issue. And some of you don't understand necessarily like a good way to use them or whatever. So just kind of a background. So some people think that they're just like a loan. That's not true. A loan, you owe the exact same amount the entire month, every month, until you make a payment. With a credit card, your balance will change every day. Oh, I'm going to write this down on a shared screen, Mr. Groom. How about you actually share your screen, dummy? There we go. Here we go. There you go. So your balance can change. Doesn't have to, but it can change every day. Okay. So the thing to keep that in mind is that if it was a monthly compounded of interest, well, I didn't owe the same amount during the entire month. So what we need to find is what is called an average daily balance. So the bank, if on a savings account, for instance, pays you interest on what you have in the bank account that month. Okay. And technically it's on the month, it's on the day that they pay you the money. So that kind of sucks. So for instance, let's say you pulled 5,000 out today and tomorrow they pay you interest on it. Well, you lost on that interest. It doesn't get prorated. That's just how life goes. But for a credit card, they charge you on the average daily balance. Okay. So some months you might purchase a big purchase at the start of the month, say a $1,200 refrigerator or something. Then the entire month you owe well over $1,200, because obviously that at the start of the month, at the start of the billing cycle, that's when you purchase the thing. And so if you bought more stuff over the course of that month, shirt, a pair of pants, some gas, whatever, you're adding to that balance. Okay. You maybe take a shirt back, you subtract from the balance, but the point is you owe a lot of money pretty much every day of the month. Other people, maybe they bought a couple gallons of gas for the lawnmower on the first day of the billing cycle on the credit card, because that's all I took with them in the store. And at the end of the billing cycle, you made that $1,200 purchase. Then for 29 days of the month, you only owed, $6 of gas money. But on the last day, you owed $1,200. Now, think back to this. Every term, someone always freaks out and asks me things like, how come I get a whatever grade in this class? And I'm like, well, you understand that they're weighted grades. Okay. So your test grade is worth a lot more than a homework grade, for instance. And so someone will just straight up add the points up and tell me they have an A. And I go, well, yeah, but you get an F on this test, which is worth more of the thing. So one day of having a $1,200 balance for one day when the rest of them were $6, in essence, that's not going to hurt anything much at all. You probably still have an average daily balance of like, $30 or something. It's not very much at all. So what we need to find out first is, how do we compute this average daily balance? That's number one. And then number two, how do we go about seeing how they calculate interest on this deal? That is the second thing we need to do. Okay. So for those of you, some of you have grown up in different ideas about credit cards. I know a lot of people who view them very negatively, and that may be because they've gotten into trouble with them in the past. That may be because somebody they know got in trouble with them and they've had it hammered at them that they're awful. Okay. I kind of feel the same way about cigarettes when I was a kid. My grandpa was horribly sick about, after smoking for a long time. And so I never tried it because it was like you were scared away from them. Okay? A lot of people have the same view of credit cards, that, because mom and dad got really in bad debt with them, I'm staying away from them forever. And I get that. But they're pretty cool things to use if you use them appropriately. You obviously can get into trouble if you're not careful, but if you keep in mind things, it's kind of a neat thing to do. Now, I did not get one until I was about 23. I grew up on a farm, had my first checking account when I was like 9 or 10 to feed my hogs. And I had a charge account at a couple of the different feed stores. I'd walk in, and I'm 10 years old, and I said, put that on my account. And the idea was you're building credit. Well, turns out when you're 23 and you go to buy something in the big city of Portland at Meyer and Frank, and they say, listen, you're buying a mattress. The guy said, we'll give you an extra 20% off if you fill out a credit card. All right. And they wouldn't give it to me because I never had a credit card. And I said, but I have all these accounts, back home. And by then I had 4 or 5 different accounts. That doesn't count. You have to have a credit card. Oh, interesting. But my wife, who'd had one since she was, freshman in college, because her dad bought her one for, to buy gas and to buy books with. That was the only thing she was allowed to do with it. But it was in her name. He was a co-signer, but the idea was that she could build credit with it, which she did. Well, I said, but she didn't have a job right now. And then it doesn't matter. She has a credit card. We'll give her a credit card. So it's a nice way to build up a little bit of credit, again, if you stay out of trouble with it. Okay. I personally like them because I like to be able to get at the statement at the end of the month and see where I spent my money. I have a really hard time with cash. Something about, I don't know, I just lose. I don't really lose it, but I mean, I don't spend it a lot. But the idea that, you know, I start off with 20 bucks and then where did it go? I don't know. I bought a couple things here and a thing there. And I'm terrible with my money that way. With a credit card and the debit card too, which debit card score is different. But I like the fact that I can go look at the statement and go, oh, that's where I put that. Oh, that's right. Another thing that's nice about the credit card is that I charge something, let's say at the start of the billing cycle, and the billing cycle is roughly a month. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. I get to use the bank's money for that entire billing cycle, and then basically another month, 3 weeks, whatever, until the bill comes due, and then it's you know, time after that. So I really get to use their money for almost 2 full months before, you know, I have to pay for it, which I like that. Obviously, on a big purchase, on a smaller purchase, it's neither here nor there. I find it just more of a convenience issue for some things, especially what things cost nowadays. You know, it's hard to walk around with a wad of cash big enough to pay for everything in cash anymore. When I was younger, I could, but now it's like, you know, like I went to Winco yesterday, and of course, put on the debit card, but you know, it's 150 bucks or whatever, and you're like, well, I'm not going to carry a wad of cash like that around with me. I don't like it. So the idea of cards is nice, you know, still carry some cash, but I like it personally for me for bookkeeping sort of point of view. So we're going to learn how to figure this out today, and then we're going to figure out what is called the service charge, or sometimes the finance charge, or some people just refer to it as interest. It's all the same. Doesn't make any difference. We're going to figure out how to figure this out, and how you figure it out is you take the average daily balance, which I'm going to abbreviate as ADB. I'm not sure what just happened. That was weird. The average daily balance, and you're going to multiply it by the interest rate divided by 12, or not by 12, you dummy, divided by 365, because we're looking for the daily interest rate. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of days in the billing cycle. Okay? So the billing cycle is usually about a month long, give or take. It rarely, if ever, starts at the first of the month. It'll start just randomly whenever. Like mine, I think is like from about the middle of the month. So it's usually around the 15th or 14th or something. So let's say hypothetically you went from April 14th to May 14th or whatever. Well, is that 30 months or 31 or whatever? Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, and we'll figure that out in a minute. So that is how we figure this out. Now, understand that there is no service charge, there's no finance charge, there is no interest if you pay the bill off in full at the end of the month, okay? If you leave a balance on there, you are responsible for this finance charge. You're like, but I paid it all but $5. I'm sorry, sir, you owe interest on the entire amount of your average daily balance for this billing cycle, okay? So that's where people get into trouble, all right? Interest rates on credit cards are in the teens almost exclusively. So like my current one of mine is 18%, which I couldn't care less. You could charge me 1,000,000% interest. If I pay it off at the end of the month, I don't get charged an interest at all. Okay. So just be aware of that. Know that going into these things, that if you pay your balance in full, there is no service charge. But most of us will have somewhere in the high teens, you know, on our credit cards. Once in a while, you'll get a, like I got one, it's probably been 8-10 years ago now, where there's a special promo deal. If you transfer any balance over, which I just bought a big purchase on the other one, I transferred it over, and then for the first 6 months, there was no interest on it, which that's kind of neat. But then after that, it jumped up to 18 or whatever. So that's just the game. So I'm going to show you how I do this in Excel. And I think I'm going to use the big computer for this. So I'm going to switch screens that I'm sharing. I'm going to show you how I go about setting this up. And I'm going to tell you right now that you should really do it my way. Not because it's, you know, I have a patent on it or anything, or I make money on it or anything, but because of the fact that when you do it this way, it's harder to screw it up. It's not impossible, but it's really hard to screw it up. And the way that there's another way to do it that our old book used to teach, and yeah, nothing terribly. I'm gonna get my plug-in for my other computer just a second. Not terrible way to do it, but I would get confused for several reasons. Number one, I have a really hard time remembering how many days are in a particular month. A really hard time with that. If I sat down and thought about it, I'd probably get it right most of the time, but that's just too much work. I don't want to do that. So I use Excel, and I'm going to kind of show you how that's going to go down. So first and foremost, I'm going to go to PCC, and I'm going to go to content. So if you want, you can follow along at home. Otherwise, as I say, I am recording this so that you can go back and watch it again. So I'm going to bring up this document here. I think this is the one I want. Yes, this is nice. And so what I've done is I've just made up a billing statement. Okay. This is very similar to what you would see in the mail when it comes at the end of your billing cycle. And you're like, Jay, you didn't buy much. No, I know. So my billing cycle runs from May 11th to June 12th on this particular example. Okay. The things that you're going to need to find is, was the average daily balance? Sure. What would the finance charge be? And of course, this one is being paid 18% on the balance. Now, oops, did I forget to share again? Yeah, I forgot to share. Never mind. I know what I'm doing wrong. All right. That's frustrating. No, you go away. You go away. Oh, I don't want that. Where is my freaking Zoom? There I am. Got it. Sorry. Here's your billing cycle. Okay. And again, that's on the website under week 2, under credit card practice. Okay. So there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Excel to do this. And let's see, how do I want to do that? I'm going to open Excel, and then I'll just do it. I'll share my Excel with you as well. I was trying to decide which is the easiest way to go about doing this. Can you? No, you can't see that. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Nice. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is homework 2, right, for week 2, this credit card worksheet?
Credit, yes.
And you're showing us now?
No, see how this works is during week 2, the things that we're covering are some more savings account stuff and credit cards. Next week we'll cover loans. That's when these are assigned. They're not due they're not due for a couple weeks yet.
Okay.
That's if you look at the dates in the thing are it's clear, it's out there. I think it's 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today on a Sunday night. So you get 2 weeks to do this. So but this is when I put in week 2 is what we're covering in week 2. And when I put in week 3 is what we're covering in week 3.
I see. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand the schedule. You know, I've been like emailing you with all kinds of questions, but I think I understand it better now.
Gotcha. All righty. So this is how I set mine up. This is how I think that you should do it. If you are a professional accountant, professional accountants would not like the way I set it up per se. They would do it a little differently. So this is the charges, things you purchased, if you will. This would be the returns or payments. And then I'll have a column for balance over here. So I'm gonna have a running balance every day of the month. Okay. And this looks terrible. Let me fix that. So this is how I set mine up. And then I'm going to take these 3 columns, which are obviously going to have money in them. I'm just going to make them into $ notations. So the first thing I do is, if you look back on this credit card thing, it started on May 11th and it goes to June 12th. So on May 11th, I'm going to put May 11 here. And then I'm just going to click and drag this down. And for me, this is the price, worth the price of admission right here. Because I don't have to think anymore. May 11th to June 12th, okay? When I do that, you're thinking, oh, that's 34 days. It's not 34 days because remember, the top one doesn't count. It's actually 33 days in this billing cycle. Okay, so I'm going to jot that down. There are 33 days in this cycle. And that's the first thing I need to know. And it's way less confusing, remember, and if May has 30 days or 31 days or whatever. I am going to, on this other computer, what is going on here? Escape, there you go. I'm going to pull this data up from the other computer and I'll just work it off of this other computer. So you need to see that. Previous balance. This is again how I do it. Other people might try it a little bit differently than this, but 450.65. Okay. So my first daily balance is 450.65. That's what I owe today. Okay. Now, what will I owe tomorrow? Well, I'll owe tomorrow what I owed yesterday, yes, because I still owe that amount, plus whatever I bought today, minus whatever I returned or made a payment on today. That formula right there will tell me what I owe the next day every time. It's the previous day's balance plus today's purchases minus today's payments or returns. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is just drag that baby down to the end of the month, or the end of my billing cycle rather. Okay. And once you set that up, now we're home free because now all I have to do is go in and put in the balance, the things that I bought. So for instance, on May 14th, we made a purchase at Big Five for $45.90. And you'll see how my balance went up to $496.55, which is exactly $45.90 bigger. On the 23rd, we also purchased something from Macy's for $26.11. And again, my balance shot up then. And on the 27th, we made a payment. And the payment was $300. And again, if you put $300 in this column, we're subtracting whatever's in this column. So it's going to be $522.66 minus 300. We should be at $222.66 now that we owe. Okay. On June 1st, we bought some Starbucks for $7.99. And on June 10th, Coastal and $42.23. Now, two things to think about is this. If you don't put the dates in until you start putting all this in, people will oftentimes forget June 11 and June 12. But those 2 days were still here. Okay, so in my mind, you put in your billing cycle first. That way, you need these other 2 days of averages. There's 2 more balances we need to find an average of. Okay. The biggest thing that people screw up on these is they'll put these on the wrong date somehow. Happens. They'll mess this formula up a little bit. So for instance, I saw this last term a lot where they took the balance from yesterday plus what you bought yesterday minus what you returned yesterday. Well, that's not what I want. I want yesterday's balance plus today's purchases minus today's returns and payments. Okay. Once that's set up, I need to find the average of this column. So I'm simply going to go equals average. I'm going to average the balances. Okay, so you just click and drag it. You type in it equals average, parentheses, and then click and drag what you want to add up an average. So our average daily balance is $361.19. Okay. And to find a service charge, you're just going to take the average daily balance times, we said our interest was 18%. Oops, what just happened? Sorry. Times 18% divided by 365 because we wanted a daily interest rate times 33 because there's 33 days in this billing cycle. Okay. So if we don't pay this off at the end of the month, at the end of the month, at the end of this billing cycle, we will owe them $272. That was our ending balance. Okay. At the end of, so the next month, they'll come in and say, this is what payment you need to make if you want to pay it off in full. Of course, you can do a minimum payment as well. If you only made a minimum payment, you owe $5.88 of a service charge. If you paid it off in full, no service charge. That's it. You're done. Okay. What I've noticed in the past is people will do this. They'll just average these up, or they'll add them up. Doesn't work that way, friends. That's exactly the same as, oh, sorry, you can't see. Let me back it up. That's the exact, people will do this from time to time. It really mind-boggling to me because I go all this trouble of setting up a spreadsheet and there's videos and there's whatever. And we spend time in class doing it and then they don't do it. People will just add these up and then divide by 6 or 7 or whatever there are there. It doesn't work that way, okay? Because we owed, if you go back to the spreadsheet, oops. If you go back to the spreadsheet over here, you can see that we owed, back to the top, come on, go with me now. No, I don't want to move that, I want to move this. As you can see, we owed $450, $496, we owed $500. We owed that for better than half of the month. We owed over $400. And then for less than half of the month, we owed $200 and some. Okay, so when you average it out, we averaged $361.19 per day that we owed the bank on average. What were you gonna say?
Who, me?
I don't know, one of you started to say something. Was that you?
I did have a question. It might not have been me. I was curious how is it that cell D, how does it know that it was a payment and return cell? Like
right here?
Yeah. Well, I see
because
that
up here on this cell right here,
yeah.
that's what we typed in. And then we
Okay.
pasted that cell down. We pasted that formula down. So right here, it's yesterday's balance, which is 522.
Uh-huh.
What's ever in the red cell minus the $300 because it happens to be in that purple cell.
I see. So you didn't necessarily do that to every single cell.
No, I copied it down. So again, if you come back up here,
Uh-huh.
I typed it in one time right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I drag it like this all the way down.
Oh, I see. I did see that. Okay, that's how it applies to every cell. How come does it matter that you put it in the second or third row down even up there where you initially put in the formula?
Well, I had to because I wanted to get yesterday's balance plus today's purchases minus today's returns. So it had to be that way.
And it has to start on that E2 line because you already have that.
E3. That's starting E3.
Oh, it starts on E3. Okay, because
so the formula is in E3 because the initial balance is in E2.
Okay. Capiche. I mean, I got it.
Gotcha. All right. So we'll do another one here. Set it up the same way. Let me go back to the other picture here. So here is another bill. And by the way, when you go home tonight and look at your credit card statement, you will see maybe yours is 19% or whatever. Some days, and this is how I do it in my real life too, is I don't buy stuff very often, but like if I go into town, I'll just burn it up one day, put 6 or 7 purchases on maybe in one day in town, and then I won't use it again for 3 or 4 weeks. That's fine. The only difference is it'll all go in on June 3rd, let's say. But off to the side somewhere, you would have added it up. So you made a total purchase of, $700 today in town. You did it in 5 different locations, but whatever. That's why I say a true accountant would get very angry the way I set this up, because there need to be a place off to the side where you could add up all the different purchases from each day, and they would come in, and that's the daily total that you bought, or the daily net that you did, because you could make a payment on the same day. You can make a payment on the same day that you bought stuff, and so the net might be that you're down $150 that day, when in fact you purchased and returned that day, or purchased and made a payment that day. And so just be aware of that. So that's just something to think about. But again, I don't worry too much about it. This is the one I'm going to use here. And again, I'll go back to Excel. This one's a little weird in that I start on the first of the month and at the end of the month. Okay, that rarely happens. And so when you go look at yours, you will see when you go home and look at your credit card statement, if you have one, that it is set up a little differently. from the standpoint of, you know, yours might start on the 6th or something and go through the 5th of the next month or something. And again, this is just how I do it. You can doctor this up and, you know, kind of really make it happy and whatever if you'd like. Payments / returns, whatever. And then, of course, if you click here, you can stretch these babies out. Click around the line. Let's back this up a hair. Drag that over. And then do balance here. Okay. And so since this, again, started on June 1st, I'm going to do that June 1. And then just click and drag it down. And there's June 30th. So that's because it ends on the 31st, we know that that's 30 days in the billing cycle. So just make a note of that. I just think it makes your life easier to do that. And so here's our previous balance. And we owed $250 from the previous balance. Again, I think it's easier to highlight all three and turn them all three into dollar signs. And then here's that formula again. This is, we owed this yesterday. We bought this today, and we took this back today. That formula. And then drag it down the line. To there. Okay. And now whatever I put in column C will be added. Whatever I put in column D will be subtracted. So on June 3rd, we made a purchase at Albertsons of $12.36. And so again, because of how I set the formula up, it's added to $12.36. On June 6th, now I went to Mart and we bought $123.58 there. And June 19th, where are we at? JCPenney, $48.26. And then on the 25th, we made a payment of $100.36. And on the 27th, we went to Starbucks again. I think it's funny, I never go to Starbucks, but I always charge them on this thing. And Dutch, I never go there either, but okay, Dutch. 11.12. Now, scrolling back through this thing, you can see that we only owed $200 for a very short amount of time. We owed $300 and some dollars, a lot. We owed $400, a lot. And again, we owed $300. So my average daily balance is going to be $300 and some dollars. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So the way to do that is simply to go average like this. By the way, I think it's funny how some people, when they go to, you know, well, somebody always gets angry at the end of the year and they say, this is what I got. I know what I got with my grade. You did it wrong, Jay, which is funny, I guess, a little bit. But it's a weighted grade and they'll just add up all their points. Well, what you're saying by doing that is that the tests and the homeworks, everything's exactly worth the same amount of points, which is not true. And so when one does that, it works for some people and it doesn't for others. So the person who gets A's on everything, it would be basically the same exact score regardless, because they all got A's. So you add it up with total points, it's an A. You have to weighted wise, it's an A. There you go. If you failed everything, then also it works. If you get C's on everything, it also works. But if you get like A's on the homeworks and D's on the test, it doesn't work that way. So just be aware of that. So I hit enter. I averaged $365 per day balance. That's what this means, average daily balance. Remember, an average does not have to be one of the actual points in the system. In other words, it's the service charge we're going to figure out here. At no point did I actually owe $365.05. Okay, it's just an average. The same way that the average family has 2.2 kids or whatever it is. Nobody has 0.2 of a kid. That's weird. That's just what the average comes out to be. So we're going to take the average daily balance times the interest rate divided by 365 because we want a daily rate. And then again, this month, in this billing cycle, there happens to be 30 days in this billing cycle. So the service charge for this problem would be $570. For those of you that like Google Sheets, you're certainly welcome to do that. It works exactly the same way for this particular example. There's nothing else to tell you. Do the exact same formulas. Okay. Questions on that one at all? This one is a little weird from the standpoint that I started at the start of the month and at the end of the month, that's just kind of odd. But again, this happens to a lot of us. We don't use our card at all, don't use our card at all. Oh, we used it one day. Don't use our card, don't use our card. And all of a sudden we burn it up maybe, okay? Same thing, same principle regardless. Okay, we'll run through another one here. If you have any questions, you go ahead and say something, but go ahead and keep going here. Date, description. Again, if you click around the line, you can stretch it out, make it a little easier right in there. And again, if you highlight these three columns and click on format, put them in the $ notation, that's helpful, I think. So problem number, well, that's right, there's only 2 of these ones. So I think that's why I have the extra link on my, if you're on the web page, if you are on our web page, the ones we just did were the credit card practice in class one. There's another sheet next to that that's called just credit card. I'm going to pull one of those up. And let me show you what that looks like here on this machine. Just a second. So under week 2, I didn't share it. No. So under week 2, if you scroll down, you'll see credit card. But the other thing you'll be learning about in class this week is the APY, the loan. We're introducing loans, and obviously in week 2, and we talked about APY in week 2 as well. Those videos you already watched. Credit cards, I would typically in class talk a little bit about loans. I would have reviewed, like I did earlier, with savings accounts, and then I spent the time on credit cards, and there'd be an activity with the credit cards, typically in a normal classroom. So again, this is what I assigned during these weeks. Back to train up here a second. If you look on the credit card worksheet, it is due on the 26th, which is, well, what is today? 15 days from today. That's what I said. Yeah, 15 days from today. So Sunday night, 2 weeks from now. Okay, so lots of time to work on them. That's just how I do them. Now this one here is a different setup. I'm going to do number 2 here, I think. Okay. And so you notice that it goes from May 5th to June 4th. So that's how I'm going to work this one out. And I'm going to, oh no, what did happen? Okay. Let's do a new share. So you guys be here, I'll do this. So May 5th. And then June 4th. So again, because it ends on 32, it's a 31-day billing cycle. So just make note of it real quick. Our previous balance was $112. And then our formula always goes right here. It's just equals the previous day's balance plus what I bought today minus what I took back today. Now, there's nothing fancy about this. If you bought $4 worth of stuff today, this should be $116. Okay, no question about it. So if you mess your formula up, go back and see if it makes sense. For instance, let's say you mess this formula up. Okay, there's nothing special about this formula at all. But let's say you did this and this. Okay, Then I bought $4 today, and you're like, nothing happened. What's going on? Well, you didn't put your formula in right. And so your formula is not about yesterday so much as it's about today. And so this is how it has to work. So double check yourself to see if that makes sense when you're putting it in. There's nothing particularly brain surgical about what we're doing here, other than the fact we're just automating a few things. If you were playing along and you had a big yellow notepad and a calculator, if I told you I bought something today, how much do I owe now? You'd just go, well, yesterday plus today. Oh, okay. And I took a shirt back today for $50. Well, then yesterday minus $50. And that's what you do on these problems. And there's nothing special about it. We're just having the computers do it for us because it's easier that way. And I'm less likely to screw it up, maybe. Went to Bob's. Oops, it's not how you spell Bob, dummy. Bob's. And we purchased some fishing gear for $48.12, apparently. And on the 11th, look at us. We redeemed some points. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that when you redeem points, it just counts. It is like making a payment. So I did that. So it took away from my balance. That's nice. May 29th. We went to Wilco. And we bought $54.33 worth of stuff. And on the 30th, we made a payment of $120. And June 2nd, we went to Dutch again, $23.11. And June 3rd, we went to Napa for $22.11. Nice. And so if you look over here, you're like, wow, there's like 6 days at the end of the month where I didn't owe much. Right, but you owed $100 and something most of the month. So when our average comes out to be $100 and some dollars, I'm not going to be shocked by that because most of the month I owed over $100. So just be aware of that. Something that always irritates me with averages too is that people at this, so I love baseball season. God help me, I love baseball and I miss it so much right now. But every year, some scrub who has been a career terrible hitter goes on a tear, just a tear. He's like hitting 500 or something in the first 2 weeks of the season, even though he only plays about 3 games a week because he's kind of a bench player and he's not very good. People are like, oh my gosh, he's the greatest player of all time. I mean, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Ken Griffey Jr., Willie Mays had a baby, and this is the guy. And you're like, he's a career scrub. What are you talking about? And then sure enough, at the end of the year, he's batting 200. You know, he had a solid 2 weeks at the start of the season, terrible. And then every year, someone like Buster Posey, one of my favorite players, who is a career 300-ish hitter, he's really good player, really good hitter, hits for average, starts off slow. And it never fails. It's always someone like him. They're like, oh, I need to trade this guy. He's terrible. I mean, what are you talking about? And then sure enough, at the end of the season, look where he is. He's exactly where he's supposed to be. Now, did he have a slump at the start of the year? Yeah. Or maybe in the middle of the year. Oh, this guy's terrible. He's washed up. Get rid of him. He had a slump for 2 weeks in August. Get over yourself. Now, that's not to say that they could be terrible forever. But usually that's not true. And it never fails. Every year, some clown says that. And you're like, dude, he's been playing baseball for 9 years. We've watched him. Okay. He's been good for 9 years. And now he's had 2 or 3 bad weeks. And you're like, no, he's terrible. He's a scrub. What are you talking about? So you watch, and sure enough, at the end of the year, he's exactly where he belongs. Okay. Ditto, you can like take that into conversations with people as well, too. You know, like, if you don't know someone the first time or two you meet them, you can obviously snap judge them a little bit. But you've been around someone for a long time and they are having I don't know, what seemingly is an off day for them. You know, some people will just cut them some slack anyways, but a lot of people will just be like, well, they're having obviously a rough day. There's obviously something more to this than the guy's a jerk. Okay. And maybe he is a jerk too. But when you look at it, you know, there's obviously more there. How do you know that? Well, you base it on past experiences. You've got a lot of time with this person. You've seen them in a million different places. And so they've had a bad week, month, day, whatever. You know, they're not the total jerk that they're coming off as right now. So just kind of things to think about like that. Just keep that in mind. It just always bugs me with averages. People think that, or a parent will come to me and go, well, my kid turned in one assignment. Okay, cool. He's still missing 35. Yeah, but his grade didn't go up. That's right, because he has like 35 zeros and he turned in one, but he turned in an assignment. I'm like, that's right, ma'am. He turned in an assignment. Kind of crappy, by the way. He's got like 70% on it. And then he's got like 35 zeros. But shouldn't that have brought his grade up? Well, it did. It's now like a 0.2% instead of a 0%. Well, I feel like I should have done more than that. Like, well, you don't get math very well. Okay, so look over the averages and see if, does that make sense when you're all done? That's the whole point of an average. And again, it doesn't have to be any particular number in our data set. In this case up here, we had 104.56. There was a few days where we owed $104.12. So it's really close to those, but it doesn't have to be even close to any of them. I mean, you could have where you owed a ton of money and then toward the middle of the month, you paid it off and you owed hardly anything. And so you have some giant extreme of maybe you owed 1,000 and then you owed 0. And the average might come out to be 500, which is nowhere near either one of them. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So to find the service charge, you take the average daily balance again times the interest rate, which was 18% on this particular credit card. Divide by 365 because we needed daily interest times 31 days in this billing cycle. So for this credit card example, the service charge or the finance charge or the interest, whichever you want to call it, is $1.60. Okay. So that's how these are going to go down. This is how I want them done exactly like this. On the credit card worksheet, there's going to be sheet 1, there's going to be 4 problems. I want them labeled sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and sheet 4. Allow me to demonstrate what this looks. Maybe I will.
Question.
Yes.
Does one of the cells does the spreadsheet know the word average?
Yep.
So when you say equals average, it will equal.
Yeah, so anytime in Excel, let me pull this up and share with you here. Anytime you type in any formula that's a canned formula, so for instance, equals payment, PMT, equals average, that's cool. There's all manner of different ones. So as soon as you start typing equals, I start typing A, there's a list of a zillion functions that Excel knows how to do. And so we just happen to be doing average. So as soon as you type in average, then it wants to know which numbers do you want me to average. So you just click and drag and highlight the ones you want to average.
I see. And the formulas that you're having us use, those are all canned formulas.
Yep.
Also. Okay.
Yep. That's all there is to her. So I want to say there's something like 2,000 formulas that Excel knows, some ridiculous number. It's a huge amount. I've never used every single one of them because I use the ones that I use, and some I use way more than others. But that's kind of how that goes. I just want to show you what this looks like. I'm going to minimize this real quick. Maybe I am. And I'm going to view as a student. And content. So here's the credit card worksheet. When you click on it, you download this document, and it's going to be just like the Word document that I showed you a minute ago. And it's going to have 4 or 5 different, there's 4 problems in it. You will do them in Excel, just like I've been doing here. It'd be nice if you'd highlight your answers, something like this, so that they're easy to spot. And then when you're done with this worksheet, you're going to save this Excel page. Oh, damn it. Try this again. Again, you're going to do sheet 1 for problem 1, sheet 2 for problem 2, sheet 3 for problem 3, sheet 4 for problem 4. It'd be nice, again, if you highlighted these data cells so it's easy to see who your answer is. So you can just click on this, highlight the answer so it's obvious. And then you're going to save this document. And then once you've saved that document, you're just going to come back in here and then you're just going to upload it right there. Okay. And then I can get back to you. Typically what I'll do, as soon as they come in, I'll grade them. I don't usually grade them until they're due-ish. So if I have like, say, 7 or 8 of them by the end of the week, by the end of next week, I'll sit down and grade all 7 or 8 of them that I have, even though that's not due yet. I'll make comments. So like, you know, obviously if you get 100% correct, awesome. But I'll look over your work. And so frequently a common mistake that people make, it's a very common mistake on these guys, is they will put this Napa on the wrong cell. They'll put it on the wrong line. They'll put it on this one here instead. Well, what does that do? Well, it gives me another $61 amount here is what it really gives me. So in other words, there would be, and so what happened, my balance went from $104 and something down to $103 and something. Okay. And why? Just because you're off by one cell. Which is how it goes. Oh, you
can I see the service charge formula again?
Yeah. Hang on.
Thank you.
It's always average daily balance times the interest rate divided by 365 times the number of days in the billing cycle.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll look over that. I'll look over your work, tell you where you went wrong. If you've completely botched the formula over here for the what do you owe every day, I'll send it back to you and say, try again. If you're off by one cell, which obviously then throws this off, which throws this off, you know, I'll just mark you down a few points, not a big deal. I usually only let people redo this one if they completely botched something. Again, if you pay attention to this, it's really easy to do. If I see someone just do this, let me show you what I mean. From time to time, I will see someone just do this, and it just so angers me. Watch this. Control C, close. Don't do this. Oops. Can you see that? Can you see the Excel? Oh, no, you can't. Now, can you see Excel? Yeah, I should be able to. Right?
Yeah.
All right. From time to time, I'll see someone do this, and it drives me bananas. They will just copy and pasted all this in. And then they will do, oh, you stop it. They will do one of the following things. They'll say, oops, come here, come here, come here, come here. Some people will do this. They'll say something like 250. And then the next line down, they'll go, well, that's 262.36 because they're just adding it up. And then they'll say something like, they'll just add these up. Well, now my balance is this. Well, that's true. If you went and looked on what we did previously, you will see that those balances are balances that we, come on, come with me. There you go. You would see that those balances are balances that we actually had on our spreadsheet. However, we had more of them than what this is getting. And so this guy is going to subtract $100 here. And again, when we do this in a minute, I'm going to go back and show you the one we did for this problem. Oops, plus this guy equals this plus this guy. Okay, and then they'll just do equals average. If I could spell it, it would help. Take the average of these guys, and you got 337. Now, the one we did for that was actually this one right here. Was that the one I just did? No. Wait, which one did I just do? Hang on a second. No, that was the June 30th one. Hang on. So back to, God, I'm losing my marbles. Go back. All right, let's try this again. So it was this one here, I believe, actually. Yes, is the June 30th one. And so 365, that is the correct average daily balance. This other person would have gotten 337, okay? Oftentimes it's off by a lot more than that. And you cannot do it this way. If you look over here on this second page, you will see that we had the number 351 there. We had the number 333 for a few days. We had 340 for several days, 3 days. We had the 434 balance for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Versus over here, each one of those only showed up one time, okay? And so it's important that you not do it this way. Don't pay attention to this. It's bad. We're not going to do that. You must do it the way I showed you, okay? Otherwise, you will not get the correct answer. One more thing that sometimes people will forget to do is they'll neglect June 4th because the last purchase was on June the 3rd. Okay. And so because June the 3rd was the last day, then what these people will do, they'll do two things. These people that make this mistake will go, well, there's only 30 days in the billing cycle because it goes to the 31st, right here, 30 31, so it's 30 days. That's mistake number one that they make. But notice what happens to our average daily balance. We had an extra $83 right here a minute ago, okay? Which means that I averaged in a lower score, which brought this down to 104. And now it's a little higher than it should be. And then also these people will come in here and they'll change this to 30, which is also wrong, okay? And so it's imperative that you do this, that you account for every single day, so in the billing cycle. So in this case, there are 31 days in this billing cycle, even though the last day of the month, we didn't charge anything. There could be a time when you don't charge for the last 10 or 15 days in the billing cycle, you don't charge anything. That's fine. That's the problem with that, but you have to include them. Otherwise, it will screw everything up. And then, of course, this has to get changed back to 31. Okay, so those are the big deals. And again, when you're finished, then upload this thing into the, upload that baby into, where did it go? Into here. Just upload it right here, and then we're good to go. Some people like to put a little, you can add a little, there's a way to type something. When you upload it, they give you a place to make a little notations too, if there's something you feel like you need to tell me on that, okay? But that's it. So that's what week 2 is all about. If you have not watched it already, go and make sure that you watch the videos on the intro to loans. And really the only difference between a loan and a savings account is that there's two obviously. Number one, there has to be a payment. You have to make a payment every month. They'll take your house, car, whatever it is you have a loan for. And then number two, and I think probably the biggest difference is the fact that it's, you're subtracting the payment instead of adding it every month, because you start off with a giant mound of debt and you're subtracting off of that. Okay. We'll talk a lot about loans next week in class, in our Saturday morning class. And I'll probably put up another video just so explaining some more things about it, so that when you'll have plenty to fall back on when you get around to doing that. Typically, when I do the loans, we spend about two-ish class periods working on loans. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think most of us use our credit card the way we use our credit card. I think it's eye-opening for some people. And so that's why I like to do it. But I don't sit down and figure my average daily balance. I just don't. I don't worry too much about it. The savings accounts, I think once you understand how they work, I think it's great. I think it's nice to plan a little bit. But again, I don't sit down and really figure out my balance either. Sometimes it's nice for planning purposes, but that's about it. But loans is a big deal. Loans is something that all of us will do. No one wants to live in a house that you can buy for cash. I don't care who you are. If you can walk down today and buy cash, with whatever cash you have in your pocket, you can buy a place to live in. I don't think you really want to live there too much. You've got some rat-infested, single-wide mobile home that no one's lived in for 50 years. You can afford to buy that for cash. Yeah, I don't want to live in it. And if you're LeBron, he might have a couple $1 million of walking around money. He probably doesn't want to live in a house he can buy for a couple million, because that's what happens when you get a little more money. Then obviously you want a nicer place, and no one can fault the guy for that. So, and as a general rule, we're going to be taking out a loan for our house. And so that's the thing I pay the most attention to is house loans. Car loans work exactly the same way in terms of how they're structured. The only difference, of course, is the less amount of time and you're borrowing less money. No one borrows $300,000 to buy a car. A, why would you want to? But B, you could not make the payment to pay that baby off in 5 years. Good luck. Can't do it. So that's not going to happen. But again, we can't afford most of it. I don't know anybody that can afford to buy a house with the cash they have saved up just for cash. So you're going to be taking out a loan. That's what I like to spend a lot of time doing. So we'll be talking about how do we figure out our payment, how to figure out how much we can afford. I think that's probably the more important thing. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to be next week in class. Well, there's a video this week to introduce loans, but next week in class, this virtual class that we're doing on Saturday mornings, we'll be talking about loans. I'll be going through a bunch of different examples. And I'll probably put up another loan video as well, kind of a follow-up next week. Yeah. And so the idea that we work on that, we work that out, and then you'll be ready for the loan worksheet, which will also be assigned next week. So again, I'm done talking for today. If there's any questions, let me know.
Where can we find this video?
It'll be posted on week 2 as soon as it gets converted.
Sweet.
Anybody else? No. Yep. All right. Otherwise, those of you that came in late, sorry about the confusion there. So I just had recorded this video. I'll be posting it on week 2. As soon as it gets converted, it takes a little while to convert the thing. So, all right. Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Peace.